Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the law, the Constitution, and current events to your house, in your apartment, in your life. Tonight, myself, James Barrett, with Mark Malachowski, we have three more subjects that will enlighten your understanding of what's going on in the world today. Mark, what are we covering?
Well, first of all, we're going to talk about the Obamacare rollout, which is, really exciting for a lot of people, but it's created some controversy.
And when we're talking about the rollout, we're talking about what started on October 1st. Is that correct?
Well, actually, this started about 3 or 4 years ago. They've been gradually working on it and trying to, figure out what's in the bill. It was quite a lengthy bill. I forget how many pages.
2,700 pages.
2,700 pages, and when it was passed, didn't Pelosi say something pretty famous?
Yeah, she did. She said, we have to pass it to know what's in it. And boy, have we found out what's in it.
No, we're just beginning. There's a lot of things. There's issues about whether you can keep your plan, whether you can keep your doctor. There's taxes in there that people weren't aware of. There's all kinds of details that, it's a surprise after surprise. So it's really exciting.
Is that the bill that just keeps giving?
Yeah, I think.
Is it like the living bill?
And yeah, it is. It's a lot like the living bill. Now, there's a guy named Joe Arrio. I hope that's the pronunciation is right. And he helped design these exchanges, right?
Okay.
And he said, well, some people have to pay more, because they're going to have to get maternity leave and mental health care and different things that they may not have had in their individual plans or other plans.
But why would I want maternity leave?
Well, because we want everything to be equal and fair.
Oh, even though I'm not going to have a baby?
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter because it's not being fair to people who are having babies. For people not having babies, not have to pay for people having babies.
Oh, so the people that are not having babies have to pay for the people that are having babies?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Good.
Okay. And and what he said about these individually insured people, well, individually insured people are the first people to kind of get the weight of this bill. In other words, to feel the pain of the bill, I guess.
Well, wait a minute. You're talking about where all the notices are going out from a variety of health care, the insurance companies, to people that have individual plans. Isn't that what you're talking about,
Well,
Mark?
yeah, they're being hit first, and they've got, some of them have, like I had a client called and said, theirs is going from, a few $100s to $1,100, basically doubling or tripling in cost, and so they're going to lose their individual plans.
But wait a minute. I understand for 3 years I've heard the president say, if you like your insurance, you can keep it, period. Are you trying to tell me now that nobody's going to be able to keep their insurance if they're an individual plan holder?
President Obama said that he did not say that.
He did say that. Is that what you're telling me?
He did not say that.
What did he say?
He said what he did say is you can keep your plan, you can keep your doctor if, and I'm paraphrasing here, if your plan hasn't changed since the bill was enacted. So that's what he's actually said. Now, there's a lot of people running around saying that he said you can keep your health plan, period, you can keep your doctor, period, but the president has said that no, that's not what he said. What he said was you can keep your plan if your plan hasn't changed since we passed the bill.
Well, I understand in California there's already been 1 million cancellation letters gone out. They're estimating countrywide right now it's about 5 million people have lost their health care, mostly in Florida, Texas, California, Oregon, Washington. So it's kind of spread around the country. So I'm trying to figure out, did those people get to keep their health plan?
Well, there's estimated right now about 5 million, and some estimates are up to 130 million will lose their health plans.
Well, I think what they're doing with that is they're saying when this, in 2014, when they roll out the small business part of this plan,
right,
that's where you're going to lose another vast majority of people, because the individual plans are saying there's only a small percentage, and it's interesting the way it's talked about in the administration. It's like, hey, what's 10, 15 million people amongst the country?
100 million.
100 million.
But what Joe Arrio said was very interesting. He said, well, the people are losing this first. The first people who are feeling the pain first are the individually insured, who are basically self-employed, have their own business or small corporations or LLCs. He said individually insured people are, quote, a transient population affiliated with rugged individualism. I'm not sure I'm going to get this entrepreneurship.
No, entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Entrepreneurialism.
That's a very difficult word.
Okay, but hostile to the government taking away something. Okay, so they're saying these guys are individualists and entrepreneurs. So, they are not...
What, they're not worthy?
No, I think these are people that obviously, as we're kind of going through a cultural revolution here, these people need to be re-educated.
Oh, re-educated. I thought they did that in Cambodia, and they've done that in China. Isn't this kind of where it's all
No,
going?
but I mean, it's re-educated because they don't rely on the government for their sustenance.
Oh, so, but now the government wants them to rely
Well,
on
at this
the
point,
government.
now they have to go to the government and beg for their health care.
Okay, this leads us to the rollout.
No, but they're being re-educated. Before they thought, I go out, I work hard, I make my own way, I pay for my family, I worship my God, I believe in what I believe in, and I make my own way, and I pay for myself. Well, you can't have that. And Joe,
under Obamacare, you can't have that.
Joe explains that. Joe explains that. He says, but you cannot have an economically viable insurance pool by letting people pick and choose. So if you have choice,
What's way to pick and choose? That's our right as an American citizen.
but this is a direct quote. So you can't have people picking and choosing. You can't have individuals, and you can't have entrepreneurs.
You mean you can't have people that believe in their own, earn a dollar for themselves, keep the dollar, spend the dollar as they choose to?
Well, like, give an example. Let's say I say, okay, I'll wash your car for $10, right? So I wash your car, you pay me $10. That type of I can never say the word, but entrepreneurism.
And yes,
entrepreneurs must be crushed. Crushed. That must be crushed, because what the government's supposed to do is like, Jim, you have a dirty car. We're going to fine you $100 to clean your car, and then we'll pay Mark $5 to clean the car, and then I pay my $250 in taxes. Government clears $97.50 or $97.50. I get my $250 because the government never has enough.
It never has enough.
Well, that's what Sebelius said. How much do you need for your health?
Sebelius, you're talking about Kathleen Sebelius, the head of Health and Human Services.
When Congress said, how much do you need to run this? Never enough. There's never enough. There's no upper limit. There's no budget.
Yeah, but how can you control a budget? That's normal. How
but I mean, but $100 to wash your car
budget.
is nothing. Maybe it should be $1,000 or $10,000, or just take the car. The government needs everything, more than everything. Okay, and so now, at first they said, look, you can keep your health plan, and they said it's save you $2,500, right? And it's not going to go for the deficit, right? It's not going to increase the deficit. Won't increase taxes. But wait a minute.
There's 20 taxes in the health care law, the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
And wait a minute. One of the big taxes, I'm going to jump ahead of you on this, is there's a 3.8% tax on real property and profits. Isn't that correct?
Okay, so this is kind of a surprise for people.
What's a surprise?
It's a surprise.
Nobody knew it was in there until we passed the bill, right?
Okay, so it's a 3.8% surtax on investment income for individuals making more than $200,000 a year. So these are the millionaires and billionaires. And
the millionaires and billionaires, that's $200,000 a year.
And what's interesting about the millionaire billionaires, because there was a thing about like the 99% and the 1%. Actually, what's happening is you've got the 8%. 8% of the U.S. population works for the government, and they're spending about $5 trillion a year. Now, it looks like Obamacare, instead of costing whatever the $100 billion it was supposed to cost, looks like it's going to cost about $10 trillion.
Yeah, I did hear that number coming down.
Yeah,
but isn't that a little more expensive than they estimated? The CBO estimated that.
You know, they were.
What's a trillion?
They were kidding. So basically, you've got 8% of the population spending now is going to be $5, $6, $7 trillion a year. So I mean, let's forget about income. I mean, the people spending the money in this country are the 8%.
Right.
They're taking from the 92%. That 8% is spending all the money, right? And so the argument about 1%, 90% really doesn't matter. But anyway, it's interesting about this 3.8%. Okay, and so now what happens? Actually, in 2012, they increased capital gains from 15 to 20% for people making over $400,000. So now, instead of paying 15%, if you invest in something, you're going to pay a 23.8% on net investment income.
Isn't that actually nearly doubling the capital gains tax?
It's a 58% increase.
58%.
And so right now, when you have an economy that's slow and you're saying, well, invest in my company, invest in my startup, people are like, invest in your startup, I'm going to hit with a 58% increase.
Why would I want to invest?
Why would you want? No, people are still investing, but they're not investing in the United States. Well, they're investing overseas. They're not hiring here in the United States.
Is all this you're telling me is related to the Affordable Care Act?
Definitely, that 3.8% is definitely going to make people say, look, I'm not going to put my money in the United States. I can put it over here. And besides, look at corporate tax rate here, what, 28%? You can go to Ireland, it's 8%. There's no surcharge. There's no, I mean, come on. But basically what this is doing is forcing people to invest overseas, or people that are overseas who invest in the United States are not going to, because it just doesn't make sense anymore. So you're stalling the economy.
Well, so you're trying to tell me not only did the Affordable Care Act bring up 20 new taxes we didn't know about, not only did the Affordable Care Act create a situation where there's absolutely no hope that the individual policyholder can keep their insurance, and that small businesses are going to be affected, and a total
LLCs pass through.
LLCs,
They're going to be slammed.
all the taxes, everybody's going to be affected by this.
Well, there is some.
But who's going to get the benefit from this?
Well, the benefit is the 8%. The government's going to have more money coming through them. Okay, you're going to hire navigators. You're going to hire more IRS agents, and the IRS agents, like the last time when they excluded the Tea Party for voting, I mean, they'll be more involved in the election. So because they're going to appoint new leaders to the central government.
Right.
So, you know, the IRS is expanding, the navigators expanding, the central, I don't know if you can call it the federal government anymore, but the central government.
Central government?
Yeah, the central government is expanding.
I don't like that kind of terminology.
No, but I mean, it's not really, because the federal government...
Are we part of the homeland now?
No, but I mean, a federal government would say there's states' rights and individual rights. This is a central government that's basically a coalition of, you know, the unions and the governments and corporations that are getting a lot of corporate welfare. And, you know, so you got a central government, and then, of course, there's the party apparatus.
Yeah, you know, why don't we just hold off here, because I know that we have 2 more subjects, and I got to tell you.
One more thing on that. There is a charitable remainder trust that if you have appreciated investments, okay, if you put that into a charitable remainder trust, you can sell that, take 5% of that annually, and then when you die, that goes to the charitable trust, and the beneficiaries will still have to pay capital gains on that charitable trust, you know, on that 5%.
I think we need to cover that in a different segment, because that's a completely different...
But it'll be over a longer period.
That's a little farther beyond the Affordable Care Act. So what's our second subject?
Okay, the second subject is the NSA, National Security Agency, and apparently they got into trouble with Chancellor Merkel.
And how did they get in trouble with Chancellor Merkel?
Well, Merkel apparently was making phone calls, and they were tapping her phone.
Well, I understand that Chancellor Merkel was actually on a vacation recently, and she was thinking about traveling to France. Did you hear that in the news?
Yeah, I think she was at the border, and the border guard said, well, where are you from? And she said, Germany. And then they said occupation. She said, no, just here for vacation.
Oh, no occupation this time?
Yeah, just vacation.
Okay, so I did understand that the NSA tapped her cell phone, as well as the leader of Brazil, as well as the leaders of France and England. I mean, it seems as though the NSA has gone beyond our borders in the search of information.
Well, it's, you know, a lot of people would argue that the NSA, you know, spies on, you know, friends and foe alike, and they spy on us, so it's okay.
But why is it that it seems only in the last few years they seem to have expanded their spy system so to everybody on the face of the earth? I'm not sure how that came about.
Well, I think there might be some countries that would be insulted they weren't spied on. I mean, look at some countries that are saying, like, why didn't you tap us? Why aren't we important enough to tap? You know, so I mean, you know, maybe that's the worst thing, is to be left out. But I think this has probably been going on for a long time, but Snowden revealed a lot of this, and so maybe more of this.
When you're talking about Snowden, you're talking about the guy that went through a rudimentary background check, then got handed a top secret clearance, and then walked away with an entire database. Is that who you're talking about?
Well, I'm saying the databases now are so you know, talking about Obamacare. Apparently, you can hack it. Most people can, you know, hack into Obamacare if you're like the, you know, junior hacker. So I mean, the government has huge amounts of information on everybody, and basically, I think what you would say is anything you text, anything you say on the phone, anything you say over the computer, it's basically like sending a postcard, you know?
What you mean is everyone can read it whenever it crosses. So you have no expectation of privacy. Isn't that what you're talking about?
What I'm saying is that, you know, you're supposed to have privacy, but, you know, you always get these emails saying, oops, you know, this was all revealed, you know? So, I mean, that happens more and more. So I think it's a real problem that that all this, but basically everything is kept.
Wait a minute. I thought we were under the Fourth Amendment, that we still live under the U.S. Constitution, and in the Fourth Amendment, I thought we had privacy rights for the people, the places, the things, the papers. All that data is supposed to be private, and we should have an expectation of privacy.
Well, I'm sure Verizon looks at it like that.
Yeah, but Verizon does. But I also understand the NSA, as we talk about the NSA, they think everything's allowed, that there is no expectation of privacy.
Well, that's because the 215 of the Patriot Act.
Yeah, and 215 of the Patriot Act said, but even under 215, Section 215 of the Patriot Act, you're still supposed to have only investigation that relates to international terrorism or anything that would be disruptive to the peace and the calm in the United States effectively. So I'm not really clear how, and you brought up Verizon. I'm not sure why Verizon would just hand over their entire database to the NSA and said, go for it.
Well, it's just so they said boo.
Well, you know that, interestingly enough, there is a Supreme Court case last year with Sotomayor writing the majority opinion where she actually started pushing back on this idea that we have no expectation of privacy in the highly technology world. And that was the fact that police were just attaching GPS devices to any vehicle without a warrant, without just kind of fishing expeditions to follow people around to see what they're involved with. So in the Supreme Court decision last year, it was indicated that that was a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So you can't do that anymore. But I'm wondering, how close is the NSA going to be looked at when they can just literally tap every cell phone, every text, every tweet, every email, every Facebook, every LinkedIn, anything?
Well, I don't think they're tapping. I mean, I think everything.
They're copying everything.
No, I mean, everything goes.
They're storing everything.
Yeah, everything's stored in Utah somewhere in a big. I think it's in Utah, right?
Yeah, it is in Utah.
Okay, everything that you do goes in there. It's just a matter of sorting it out. And I guess what the reason is, or how they evade the warrant, is they say, well, we're just looking for patterns. We're not looking at particular people or something like that. But it's kind of funny because, you know, sometimes they do end up looking at particular people.
Well,
and
that's
then how do you go from this broad kind of looking for patterns to, well, this is a political enemy I don't like too much. Let's make sure they can't vote, like say the IRS did for the Tea Partiers. Right? They said, okay, you can't do a 501c. We're going to hold you up. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to investigate all your friends. I mean, and that just tends to happen. So, I mean, now...
What do you mean tends to happen?
Well, it tends to happen when you have a government that believes that in a central government. When you have a central government that believes in central planning, then, of course, they're going to use those tools because that's how a central government works.
Yeah, but see, isn't that more of a totalitarian regime?
Well, yeah, it is more tyrannical. Yeah, it is. But it's very efficient.
Well, it's efficient only because they control the populace down to their thumb.
Well, it's efficient for them.
Yeah, it's efficient for them. What about the rest of us? Don't we have an expectation of privacy under the Fourth Amendment? Shouldn't the Fourth Amendment actually work whether or not we're in high-tech age or back in the days when we had Pony Express?
Well,
I'm not getting this at all.
It's an interesting... Google has said that, look, if you send something by Gmail, right, you've given up your right because it's just like the secretary opening your mail.
Yeah, but Google's not my secretary.
Yeah, and I think that analogy is not correct exactly for that reason, because my secretary would be my agent. Google's not my agent. But what they're saying is that, you know, anything you send through Gmail is they can go through and mine and do whatever they want and look at it because they're trying to figure out what to sell.
Well, I thought they already got in trouble over all that, and they were supposedly going to give us back that privacy, or is that just an illusion that we heard from the Googleites?
No, I mean, I think their last response to that was, no, we get to look through everything.
For what reason?
Because you took their
we use their product.
Free service. No, you're using a free service.
Right.
Now, if you're doing a paid service, I think you have more expectation of privacy. So the question is, if I'm emailing from a paid service to a Gmail, okay, does that wipe out my expectation of privacy?
Well,
I don't know.
The answer seems to be yes, because Google says anything that crosses their lines becomes their property. And I also understand they were getting in a lot of trouble.
Well, I think they can also sell it. I think they can also sell.
Well, wouldn't that be the same idea of selling a sales list of people that buy certain clothes or buy whatever?
Right. Well, so that's, you know, and then also, you know, if you Skype something, that never goes away. If you text something, they never go away. All these things are, you know, discoverable. All these things, you know, so you got to remember that anything you do electronically now is a permanent record, and apparently, you know, there's not a whole lot of protection because the Fourth Amendment seems to have been kind of...
compromised.
Well, the Patriot Act seems to have affected it, and it seems like just the technology is moving pretty quickly. But I'm saying, okay, let's say I send a letter, right? And it gets dropped in the mailbox. And I'm walking down the street, I open your mailbox, I can open that letter. I mean, physically, that can happen a lot of times, right?
Correct.
I could go down, there could be a mailbox that people drop their mail. I could take a hanger with some gum on it, fish out some letters and open them, right? It's physically possible, right? But that's still a federal crime.
Right.
You're not supposed to do it. You have an expectation of privacy. Not only that, there's a presumption if I mail a letter, you receive it, which means people aren't intercepting it.
Okay.
So I don't really see the big difference. It's just a matter of what the law says. If the law says you can't pry into electronic communications, I think it would stand as much as paper communication.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think what we ought to do right now is I think we ought to get to our last segment. And what's our last segment tonight, Mark?
Well, it's that time of year.
That time of year?
That time of year. It's the holiday.
What are you talking about, the holiday season?
It's the holiday season.
Are we talking about holidays and having fun, or are we talking about something else?
Well, it's how, you know, people in the holidays tend to tip a few back and go drive and see some relatives and see some friends and have a good time. And then just when they're driving home,
there's a checkpoint.
There's a checkpoint.
And when we're talking about checkpoint, aren't we talking about police checkpoint?
Yeah, there are roadblocks, checkpoints, DUI checkpoints, sobriety checkpoints, whatever you want to call them.
But I have a question. You know, there's been a lot in the news lately about stop and frisk. Isn't a DUI checkpoint a stop and frisk?
Well, I'm not sure exactly the legal foundation for the stop and frisk, and that's being fought right now. But the Michigan versus SITS, excuse me. Michigan police versus SITS in 1990, SCOTUS Supreme Court said, like, you can have these roadblocks without a warrant. So usually when you pull over a car, or pull over a person, for example, you would need reasonable suspicion.
A probable cause of some crime being committed.
It could be reasonable suspicion.
Reasonable suspicion, which is a much lighter level.
Reasonable suspicion, then you have to do probable cause for the arrest.
Right, to move up for the arrest.
And so, but see, basically these are warrantless searches, and you remember, you know, you have your warrant exceptions, right? Well, they kind of carved out a new warrant exception. It's like
the DUI checkpoint?
DUI checkpoint is that no warrant is required, right? And no reasonable suspicion. And so they're saying, well, what the argument was is like drunk driving is so bad and so many people get killed. And there's no doubt that it's a terrible thing.
No, drunk driving is something
it is a trouble.
It is a killer, and there has been a pretty good drop in drunk driving fatalities because of DUI checkpoints and an aggressive enforcement by both the Highway Patrol and the city
Actually,
police.
the checkpoints haven't really caught that many people or are statistically shown to have much of an effect.
Does that mean they drive around side streets when there's a checkpoint? That's increased, right?
Well, what's happened is, you know, in a lot of cases, now technically it's not illegal to evade a checkpoint.
Well, we all know just trying to evade a checkpoint means you're going to get arrested no matter what you do.
Well, if you commit an infraction, but
an infraction.
Sometimes it's kind of hard to evade.
Illegal left turn.
Yeah, but a lot of times
stopping in the street, making a right turn.
But I mean, if, like, say for instance, the checkpoint's on the Golden Gate Bridge, I mean, it's kind of hard to make a U-turn because that'd be an infraction. They get you there. So, and most cases where people try to evade, or a lot of cases, defendants get in a lot of trouble.
Right, of course they do.
And so it's kind of hard to go around them. Now, the Supreme Court said, oh, there's got to be a way you can get around it, but it's not that easy.
In practicality, that's almost impossible because what happens is they set up in the mid-block, so there's no right or left turn for you to go to, and the signs are so close to the starting of the checkpoint where they notify you, by the way, which is a requirement that was laid out, that they have to notify you that there's a checkpoint, that the distance between the notification and the actual checkpoint is usually, there's nothing to make a right or a left turn to. It's just drive on. You're on the way. Here it comes.
Yeah, and you don't want to try to drive through a checkpoint. That's not good either. Okay, so no warrant. The Supreme Court said, look, if the police can stop you, completely innocent, no reasonable suspicion, all your lights are working, license is up to date, you know, you're not speeding, you're obeying every law. They can stop a completely innocent system with absolutely no reasonable suspicion, which I think is, I have to say, I think the Supreme Court erred here. I don't think the police have a right to stop someone who's going and doing their lawful legal business.
But the question is, during the holiday season, don't you think they have a duty to protect the community from those that have been drinking a little too much?
Well, I think they do, but I think they have to have reasonable suspicion to comply with the 4th and 14th.
What you're talking about then is if the car's weaving, if there's some visual signs that somebody's intoxicated, but to get that would normally require a vehicle following another vehicle.
Right.
It would require watching somebody stumble out of a bar. It would require them not stopping every innocent car that drives down the street and smelling the inside of the car, looking at the eyes on the people, or gazing into their starry, blurred eyes. So I have a question here. What are you saying? You're saying you believe the DUI checkpoints are a violation of the Constitution?
I'd say they're a violation of the 4th and 14th Amendments, yeah.
Okay, and so as a result of that, then haven't there been lawsuits on DUI checkpoints?
Well, I'm saying it went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that you don't need a warrant to do it.
And you know why? They probably ruled on that because of the public good that a DUI checkpoint, at least by illusion, would be a good thing for the
Well,
community.
they thought that it was a minimally invasive.
Minimally invasive.
That's how they. That's how
that's a good term.
They said
I
it was
like that.
minimally invasive, and so they're saying, well, the innocent guy just gets stopped momentarily.
Momentarily.
He's happy to see the officer.
And he's saying Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and he doesn't have to talk to him. He doesn't have to answer any question. If the officer says,
I don't know about that.
No, he doesn't have to. No, he doesn't.
Yeah, but that means you know what? That says red flag, red flag.
Well,
red
yeah,
flag.
he'll probably get pulled
He'll
over.
get pulled over.
Arrested and
Yeah,
beaten.
first
But
time
he
the
doesn't have to.
officer says, how you doing tonight?
No, that's not what they're going to say. They're going to pull you over and say, have you been drinking tonight? You don't have to answer that question. But if you say, I don't want to answer that question, they're probably going to say,
They're
pull
gonna
over.
pull you over. Well, now we have to investigate. Yeah, because now you're suspicious because you didn't want us to talk to.
Or you don't roll down your window.
And you don't roll down your window.
Yeah, I'm okay. You put up a little sign. I'm
okay.
See you later.
You're okay. I'm okay.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
yeah, it's not going to work. Okay, so anyway, but legally, you don't have to roll down the window. You don't have to talk to him, but it's not a good idea. You'll probably get pulled over and
Well, you
wrestled to
realize
ground
the average Joe that hasn't been drinking and maybe just driving will roll down the window and they'll go, "Oh, officer, good evening. How is everything?"
Yeah, may I help you?
May I help you?
Can I be of some assistance?
Yeah, I'm your friend.
Yeah, I'm going to be of some. So anyway, so the cops can pull you over and ask you. They look for indications of inebriation. They can say, look, does it smell like alcohol? Do you have blurry eyes? Do you slur? Is there any kind of indication of inebriation? If there is any indication, then you get shuttled over to the side there, right? And then they ask. Then they ask for your license and registration. If you fumble looking for that or can't find that, then that's another indication. Then they say step out of the car. Now at that point, generally, I'm not saying always, but quite frequently, when they ask you to step out of the car, it's very likely you're going to be arrested.
Yeah, it's the moment they ask you to step out of the car, you're going down.
Well, very likely.
Because they wouldn't have asked you to get out of the car unless they believe that you're already showing objective symptoms of being intoxicated.
And so at that point, they're really just collecting more evidence against you.
Yeah, they're watching the symptomology of what a typical DUI, not victim, but a DUI target would actually look like.
Defendant.
Well, what do you recommend, Mark? When you see a DUI checkpoint, you've been drinking beers, you know you're in trouble, you got nowhere to go, what do you do?
Well, I don't think you have much choice. I don't think
you have to go through the checkpoint.
I don't think you can evade. I think you have a hard time evading.
I think the moment you evade, they're going to send the motorcycle cops who's sitting there waiting for somebody to invade. So what do you do?
And a lot of times, they'll pick certain cars out of the.
Well, they don't pick every car. They'll take every third car, every second car, every fourth car.
You may by luck just get through. Okay, but if not, if you're in there, okay, I would say that even though you don't have to ask their questions, you probably should say hello, one thing or another. If they pull you over and ask you to get out of the car, at that point, depending if you're inebriated, you're probably better off to politely refuse the FSCs and say, officer, I respectfully decline to take the FSCs. I don't want to take this.
All right. Well, listen, Mark, I tell you, I think that's good advice for the holiday season. And I want to thank you for another wonderful evening of Law Talk.
And Stop and Frisk.
And Stop and Frisk.
Well, we'll have to do Stop and Frisk next time.
We're going to do Stop and Frisk.